Sexism is absolutely exhausting. Sexism is absolutely exhausting. But sexism isn't just exhausting. For the state of Israel, sexism is a national security threat. There are a lot of people in Israel that do not believe the testimony of a woman is equal to the testimony of a man, that women are not to be believed, that they're not to be taken seriously. This is compounded by religion, which props up this idea that women are to be seen and not heard. Both in Christianity and in Islam and Judaism, it's this idea that women are to be silent. There are some ultra-Orthodox in Israel that segregate the buses so that Jim Crow law is basically in effect, and women are forced to sit in the back of the bus. I've been on those buses. I have sat in the back of the bus. I have been that woman. I have been the second-class citizen in Israel. When you want to get married in Israel, you have to go to the rabbis, complete strangers, and discuss in detail your menstrual blood so that you don't have sexual intercourse when you're menstruating on your wedding day. These are my experiences in Israel. This is one of the reasons why I would never want to get married in Israel, to avoid these kinds of degrading, disgusting, intimate conversations with people that have no need to know those things. They're not doctors. When October 7th happened, the massacre of October 7th, the women of the wall, the female soldiers of the wall that had been monitoring the activities of Hamas days prior, made multiple reports letting the IDF know what was happening. But the IDF chose to ignore it because it was the testimony of women, perhaps. Perhaps that's what happened. It's starting to look that way. And so what we learn from sexism is that sexism is a national security threat. And I believe by ignoring researchers who are women, even if we are quirky and have strange names like Whimsy, you should be able to put that shit aside and be able, if you really are an adult, to simply look at data. But what I have found is that I'm not even allowed to get into the room. I have found that I have been dismissed before the conversation starts because I'm a female and because I'm an American. There's this assumption that I'm naive. It's not my job to tell you who I am 24/7, to assure you, to somehow prove to you that I'm not naive. I shouldn't have to be humiliated and degraded in ways that a man, an Israeli man, would not be. I shouldn't have to pass multiple tests simply because I'm female. I should be treated like every other researcher, and my data should be submitted and analyzed and put through all the same rigorous standards of anybody else that presents a thesis. That's being rational. And I'm not seeing a lot of rationality here. If anything takes out Israel, it's going to be the complete apathy, the lack of cohesion. The other thing that I find disturbing as a woman is that I've written multiple papers, multiple articles, multiple briefs, and people are adopting these concepts, but it would never enter their mind to write me a letter, thank me, or give me credit. Instead, they will simply steal my ideas, adopt them as their own, and then call it their idea, their plan. And they don't have to pay me. They can simply rip me off because I am a woman, because I am not with the IDF, because I don't have security clearance, even though I've said that I'm more than happy to go through security clearance. I am Israeli American. I have FBI clearance in the United States as a physician. This shouldn't be too complicated. But they're not going to do that because they don't have to take me seriously. They don't have to take little whimsy seriously. Because I've been dismissed before I enter the room. And if I'm lucky enough to have my data looked at, usually my name is the first thing they see, and then the article is dismissed. I didn't pick my name. I have no control over these things. It's not been a good trip. This has not been a good trip. The biggest thing I see is lack of cohesion, lack of communication. Everybody's just doing their own thing and not stepping back and seeing the bigger picture. Everyone's living in their own little enclave. I've also been documenting different reactions I'm getting. The first reaction, which is the most common, is to dismiss me before I walk into the room. Naive American. No clue who I am. They've written a story inside their mind. They have no clue who I am. Half of them don't even know I'm an Israeli. The second response, the first is just to dismiss me as naive and or to dismiss me at all. And I can't remember what the second response was, but that's the biggest frustration for me, is just being ignored, not being listened to. Yeah, I think, and the biggest other problem is that there's no unity, no ability to step back and look at things objectively. Everybody's living in their own world. That's the second biggest issue I'm finding. An apathy has set in Israel that is very dangerous. An apathy has come to our country that if we don't begin to deal with it, it's going to be a problem. Well, the second thing, the second problem is denial. This is something I found where you'll talk to Israelis and say, we've got to work on integration. And then the Israelis will say, we don't have a problem. There's no problem. We're fully integrated in Haifa. Haifa's great. All the Arabs and Jews are studying together in Haifa. It's great in Haifa. Complete denial. Or statements like Arabs and Jews are equal in Israel. No, they're not. Either you're dealing with complete denial, or people don't want to talk to you at all, or they call you naive. So that's frustrating. There's simply, everybody seems to be unplugged. And so close to the problem that it's a severe myopia and no ability to step back and pull away and see we are not working together as a cohesive unit. We're all just doing our own little thing, living in our own little worlds, and often engaging in behaviors that are putting the fellow citizens in the state at risk. And it's just very, if you have 35% of Arab Israelis supporting Hamas in certain areas, a terrorist group that murdered and raped and pillaged, if you've got 35% amongst your citizens in certain areas, that to me is not a successful integration. If you don't have Arab citizens joining the IDF, well, if they want to, that's not equality. If you or I get drafted as Israelis, we're going to go to jail, straight away to jail. We don't have a choice. So why should citizens, simply because they're not Jewish, be allowed the choice to avoid the IDF? That's not equality. That's favoritism. And that's not creating a unified Israel, because the way we come together, one of the ways is through the IDF. We create community, team building, etc. And if you never had that experience, how can you be part of the team? So this is a huge failure on the part of Israel to do due diligence, security clearance, and to get people into being part of the state, investing in the state. Invest in the state. We must invest in the state. This is general game theory. How do you create a Zionist? By making them an investor. If you've unplugged 1/3 of your citizens from investing in the state, there's no reason for them to be invested in the state. They become apathetic and indifferent to the state because they don't have a connection to the state. The other is kibbutzes. Kibbutzes do not bring in Arabs usually, Arab Israelis. It is not equal on kibbutz. So you get more denial. Well, I couldn't get into kibbutz because I'm a physician and they wanted me to work as a physician. So I was hired as a physician by the kibbutz, but I couldn't simultaneously be a member. So therefore, and I felt there's a huge difference between being rejected on a kibbutz because you didn't meet their employment requirements or demographic, whatever, and being intentionally denied access to something that's very Israeli, the kibbutz, simply because you're an Arab Israeli. Because another great way to make someone an investor in Zionism is through the kibbutz networks. Because the person is able to invest in the kibbutzim and is able to see a profit. One of the things that I sent the IDF was the suggestion that we begin summer programs for displaced Arab youth and Bedouin to bring them into some of these settlements and yishuvim to live and stay for maybe 3 months after they've passed security clearance, have some ulpan experience and bonding, get to experience a little bit of the kibbutz life, and integrate them into Israeli society. If such a person were successful to go through those types of programs, summer youth programs, etc., for Arab youth, I believe that the more that we do these types of programs, the more successful integration will be. People keep telling me, I've got it wrong, you don't know what you're talking about, they're so wonderful, there's so many things going on. I've spent 30 years on this subject, at least, maybe 35. And I've written 500 letters at least, and I've contacted multiple peace communities. None of them gotten back to me, by the way. Not a single, the Arab Institute. I've run my thesis through multiple supercomputers. I've had it analyzed up the wazoo. So I know my data is sound, so it's not a problem with my data. That's not the problem. The problem is we've got things going on in Israel right now that are making it very difficult for us to help ourselves. And the stumbling blocks that I'm facing right now, and part of that's discrimination, is making it really hard for me to help. All right, so I just wanted to get that off my chest while I'm sitting here in my bathroom at 2 in the morning. Thank you for your love and support of the Oasis One project. And I'll be in Jerusalem with my friend Aviva, and I'm sure it'll be a great trip. All right, thank you, everyone. Bye.